ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله اللهم زدنا علما وحكما وهدى أما بعد. We ask Allah to accept from us and bless us in this class, and I greet all of you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's really an honor to see all of you, and I thank MSA for hosting us for this very noble program, inshallah, on the Fiqh, introduction to Fiqh. And I want to congratulate each and every one of you, because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, whoever seeks a path, whoever seeks knowledge, or treads a path seeking knowledge, Allah will make his or her way to Jannah easy. Whoever treads a path, من سلك طريقا يلتمس فيه علما سهل الله طريقه إلى الجنة. Whoever takes a path seeking knowledge, Allah will make his or her way to Jannah easy for them. And it's really an honor to. I'm glad that you're all together here. I know it's kind of a weird format, but like LC is like this huge room here. My dad, I was on the way here, and I told him we're going to be in the LC. So he said, whatever you do, don't touch the red phone. I don't know if you guys know what the red phone is. I don't know. He said, don't touch it. So, anyways, that's probably professors know more about it. He said that, right, they get all kinds of police and stuff out. So I'm going to stay away from that. I'm going to try to walk around, and I'd like to interact with the audience, inshallah. If you have any questions or during the dars, you're welcome to ask, inshallah ta'ala. So alhamdulillah, today we're continuing on the next section of the Fiqh, which is on the Fiqh al-Tahara, or the knowledge and comprehension of purification. And one of the interesting things about Fiqh, what I wanted to mention before we go into more detail, just to give you a broad overshadow of Fiqh, the scholars, they say that everything in Sharia, everything in Islamic law is there for one main purpose, one great purpose. Every ruling you find in the Sharia, it leads you to one great overriding purpose, which is attaining benefit and warding off harm. Everything in Sharia, the ultimate goal of Sharia is jalb al-masalih wa daf al-mafasid. So when we study these advanced rulings, we have to keep that in mind that these texts, there's a greater wisdom behind it, a higher purpose. And that's the beauty of Sharia, that we ourselves as human beings, our knowledge is limited. We would not always know what is beneficial, what is harmful for us. But out of Allah's mercy, He sent His prophets with this beautiful Sharia, this beautiful religion, which guides us to that which is good and takes us away from that which is harmful. So the text for today, I thought we would start on this text here, which is just a sample of one of the rulings in Islamic law. So we as students, inshallah, we pray to Allah that we open and awaken our fiqhi thinking. That's really the goal, because Fiqh al-Tahara, do you think we can cover it in 45 minutes? I have on my website, advertising for my website, I have 80 lectures on Fiqh al-Tahara. So we're not going to be able to cover all of Fiqh al-Tahara tonight, but inshallah, what I pray to Allah that we awaken, or we help open our minds to the thinking of the scholars, the way that the fuqaha, they analyze texts and derive rulings. So the text for today is regarding the container that a dog has licked from. And the hadith, we'll read it together here, inshallah. Narrated Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him. Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the cleansing of a utensil or a container that belongs to one of you, if a dog licks from it, is to wash it 7 times, using soil for cleaning it the first time. And in one narration, he should spill out its contents, the container. And this hadith is narrated by Imam Muslim. So here, I'll say it again, just paraphrase it. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he's reporting from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that the purification, tuhuru ina'i ahadikum, if a container, if a dog licks from it, is to wash it 7 times and using soil the first time. To use dirt the first time, you clean it. And in the narration, he should pour it out. So now, just on face value to start out, it's a very interesting text. And in fact, this is one of the foundational texts in Islamic law. One of the foundational texts in the chapter of purification. And it's a very good test case for students of law, because you can see how the scholars analyze texts and then derive rulings from those texts. So inshallah today, let's go together and look at this text line by line, inshallah, and try to see how the scholars will derive the knowledge, the rulings, the sharia, the fiqh from this text. And of course, I congratulate all of you for studying the fiqh. And there is one other thing about when you study fiqh. I remember one of my Shiva Katsiris, he was Ratib al-Nabulsi. He said that the human being, he has 2 qualities. He can be, if he has an angelic quality, which is when he has knowledge, when he opens his mind, he studies, he attains knowledge. This is the angelic quality that a human being can have. And if a human being, if he follows his desires, his hawa, then this is an animal quality. When a person, they study fiqh, they're trying to move away from their animal desires, their whims, and try to get closer to the knowledge, the wahi that was revealed from the angel Jibreel alayhi salam. So this hadith here, the scholars, when they look at the text, actually I'll leave it up for you, maybe that's better. The scholars, when they look at this text on the Prophet ﷺ said, the cleansing of a utensil that belongs to one who. So there's a utensil, a cup, a container, and the dog licks from it. You're not allowed to use that container. You shouldn't drink from it or make wudu from it until you poured it out and washed it 7 times, the first time with dirt. Now the scholars, they say, what is the ruling on the saliva of the dog? When the dog licks from this container, we have to wash it, right? So the Prophet ﷺ said, "Tuhuru ina'i," purifying. So what is purification? What is purification? Purification could mean 2 things. One is purification in a spiritual sense, when we have to make wudu or we have to make ghusl. And that's for a human being. When we become in a state of impurity, we have to make wudu to come out of the state of impurity. We break it. Or we have to make ghusl to come out of the state of impurity. The other type of purification is when you remove filth, like blood or urine or dog saliva. So here in this text, the Prophet ﷺ said, purifying a container. What does it mean? Does it mean to make wudu on the container, to do ghusl? Or does it mean to remove physical impurity? Yes? Obviously, right? A container doesn't pray, he doesn't have to make wudu. So this is how the scholars, they understood the wording tuhur. That it has to be, it's something where you're trying to remove that impurity from the container. Then the question comes up, is that container, is that saliva of the dog, is it physically impure, like urine, blood, something that's a filth? Or is it cleaning like you clean a shirt, or you take a shower and you get clean? What type of cleansing is this that's taking place? The majority of scholars, they said when you purify something, tuhur, you're purifying it from physical impurity. So the 3 imams, the 3 madhahib, they say that the dog saliva is a physical impurity. And that, you're removing that physical impurity. That's what tahara means here. But Imam Malik, he said no. Imam Malik, he says that purifying the container, here it means removing something that's dirty. It doesn't mean that it's a physical impurity, but it means it's taking something that's dirty away. It's not It's not going to invalidate your prayer if a dog licks you, according to Imam Malik. Imam Malik says the dog is pure. The dog is pure. It's not impure, according to Imam Malik. But he said there's a wisdom why the Prophet ﷺ is telling us to purify the container. It's not because it's physically impure, but there's some health reasons. There's something that's harmful in the saliva of the dog. Imam Malik wants us to, he says that this is the wisdom why the Prophet ﷺ told us to wash the container. By the way, this is a story. When my mom, she first came to Australia, she left India, they were selling hot dogs. Hot dogs. So she said to herself, oh my God, in India, we don't eat dogs, not hot, we're cold. So today's hadith is about dogs. Are dogs physically impure? Is their saliva physically impure? Or is it something that is just dirty and there's a health reason behind cleaning? And this is what we're going to, inshallah, try to understand. So here, the scholars, they say, the majority say that it's a physical impurity. Imam Malik says no, it's not an impurity, it's just something that has to be cleansed for health reasons. Is that clear what a physical impurity is? Like, is dirt a physical impurity? Dirt on the ground? Is that clear? No, it's not, because you can use dirt to purify yourself, right? When you make tayammum, I don't know if you've heard of tayammum, the dry ablution, you actually touch the dirt to purify yourself. So dirt is not a physical impurity. But, for example, blood. If you have blood on your clothes, can you pray? No. Even though we're filled with blood, but when blood comes out and it gets on our clothes, we can't pray. So there's a difference between dirty and impure. Something might be impure, but we don't consider it dirty, normally speaking. Like something could be haram. Also another thing, something could be haram, but it's not impure. For example, gold. Gold, is it impure? Sisters would be very upset. Gold, it's not impure, but can men wear it? No. So it's haram, but it's not impure. So just because something's haram doesn't make it impure. But everything that's impure, we have to remove it from our clothes, we have to purify ourselves. And dirty, something's dirty, does it make it impure? No. Dirt on the ground, we pray, we put our heads on the ground if we're praying outside. Just because it's dirty, people consider it dirty, doesn't make it an impurity. So here in this text, Imam Malik, he says, the dog's saliva, we clean it for a health reason. That's why the Prophet wants to wash it 7 times, 1 time with dirt. The majority say no. You have to completely, you have to wash it off because it will invalidate the prayer and it's a physical impurity. Now, so now Imam Shafi'i, he says, okay, so the dog, the saliva is a physical impurity. What about the rest of the body of the dog? If the dog's saliva is impure, what about his arms or his legs? If he sticks his legs in your can, not really in the can, say you have like a cup of Pepsi, right? And the dog sticks his paw in it. Does it make the whole container impure? Here the scholars, they try to analyze, they try to understand. If the dog's mouth is impure, then what about, and that's a noble part of the body, the feet are on the ground, the other parts of the body are more dirty normally speaking. So Imam Shafi'i, he said any part of the dog is impure. Any part of the dog. So if he puts his paw in a cup, then the same hadith applies. You have to wash it 7 times, 1 time with dirt, not just his mouth. And the reason he says that is because the saliva, it comes from the inside of the body of the dog, right? And where does the sweat come from? Same thing, right? The inside of the body of the dog. So they said saliva, it comes out and it's impure. So the sweat of the dog has the same ruling. Does that make sense? You agree?
The dogs don't sweat.
You got it. Some people responded and they said, wait a minute, dogs don't sweat. When they're hot, what do? They lull out their tongue or they jump in a swimming pool or, they cool off. So the dogs don't really have sweat. So then Imam Shafi'i responded. He said, okay, maybe he doesn't sweat, but if you pour water on him, that water touches his skin and it acts to transfer the impurity from the dog. So if the dog is wet and you touch it, you get impure. But if your hands are dry and the dog is dry and you touch it, would you get impure? No. Because dry things, they don't transfer impurities. So that's basically the view of Imam Shafi, that the whole dog is impure. Whereas most of the scholars, they said it's only the saliva. Okay. Now we come to another issue. Now, which is there any other animals that also have the same ruling of a dog? The pig. Imam Shafi, he says, the dog, if his saliva is impure, then the pig is much worse. Which is worse, a dog or a pig? Everyone said pig. Dogs, pig is completely prohibited. We can't eat its meat. We can't even keep a pig ever. But for dogs, there's some leeways. You can keep a hunting dog, right? You can keep a dog that was a guard dog, as a sheep dog. So the pig is definitely more impure. So Imam Shafi said, if the pig licks your container, you also have to wash it 7 times, 1 time with dirt. Does that make sense? Is that right? I'm going to tell you about Imam Malik to you in a moment, which is quite amazing. Imam Malik, remember, he says the dog's saliva is non-impure. He said there's a health reason for it. This is his understanding. And let's understand why he says that. Imam Malik, he said that when you look in the Quran, Allah says that you're allowed to eat a bird that a dog has caught. Right? There's a verse, the verse is right here. يَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا أُحِلَّ لَهُمْ قُلْ أُحِلَّ لَكُمُ الطَّيِّبَاتُ وَمَا عَلَمْتُمْ مِنَ الْجَوَارِحِ مُكَلِّبِينَ. That's the word. Mukallibin means the trained dogs. So they ask you what is lawful to them. Say, lawful to you are all good things that are pure, and what you have taught your trained hunting animals, your dogs, to catch. So Imam Malik, he says, if you say that the dog's mouth is najas, impure, then how about when the dog, he's not only, he's catching the bird, he's not just licking the bird, he's putting the whole bird in his mouth. And you're going to eat that bird. And Allah doesn't say, wash the bird 7 times, 1 time with dirt. Right? Does that make sense? So, what does the Jumhur, the majority, respond back? They say, wait a minute. The part that the dog touches with his tongue is what? The feathers, right? Do you eat the feathers? You're going to take the feathers off. Okay, so say he licks the saliva somehow gets to the body of the bird. But what happens when you put the bird, when you cook it? Fire, right? And fire purifies things. One of the things that purifies is fire. So they say that perhaps the reason why Allah doesn't say to wash it, you put it in the fire, it's going to burn it and change those impurities and make them purified. So this is the view of the majority of scholars. But Imam Malik, he has another evidence, which is very amazing. Imam Malik, rahimahullah, he says that in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he had, in the masjid, he had some tribes come and visit him. One of those tribes, it's mentioned in Sahih Imam Bukhari, that one of these tribes was visiting and the Prophet ﷺ would have food cooked for them. And they would throw the scraps out of the tents in the masjid, and the dogs would come through the mosque. This is what Imam Bukhari said. Dogs used to come and go through the Prophet ﷺ's mosque. And they used to find these scraps, and they would sniff, and what does a dog do after he sniffs? He licks it up and he eats it, right? Did the Prophet ﷺ tell the Sahaba to clean that dirt, that ground where the dogs were licking? Did he tell them go and wash it 7 times, 1 time with dirt? Well, it's already dirt, but he said wash it 7 times? Oh. So Imam Malik, he says, if the dog's saliva, because can you pray where there's an impurity? This is a masjid. If it was really impure, the Prophet ﷺ would have told them, go and clean the whole masjid. These dogs have been licking all over the place. Must be all kinds of saliva. Right? He didn't tell them that. He just said pray. So Imam Malik, he says, no, it's not a physical impurity that you can't pray. There must be, when you have it in a container and you drink it, there must be some health reason. It's not that it's just a physical impurity on the ground. Okay, so I'm sure you're all wondering, what does Imam Malik say about why the prohibition of, or why do we have to wash 7 times 1 time? If it's not a physical impurity, then why do we have to wash it so much? Especially with dirt and water and scrubbing and all this. If it's not a physical impurity, what is the reason behind all this? Well, today, and even the Maliki school, they say that perhaps the reason is that dogs carry rabies in their mouth. And if a person were to take that container, say there was a cup of Pepsi, and a dog came and licked in it, and he had rabies, and you drink that from that container, what would happen to you? You get rabies. And rabies is a very horrible, terrible disease. So Imam Malik said that the Prophet ﷺ was teaching us a way to take away that harm of rabies by washing it 7 times 1 time with dirt to make sure that that rabies, yes?
If that was the case, then why aren't all animals that can carry rabies on the same level?
Okay, there's a couple of reasons here. She's asking about why not other animals. Most of the time, the animal that carries rabies the most is the dog. And it's the animal that's most commonly found around people. There might be some other animals that live in the wild, but normally the animal that will lick through your containers is probably a dog. Cats, they rarely have rabies, not as much as dogs. So that's probably one of the wisdoms, that if a dog were to lick, you would get affected by the rabies. But some people, they say, rabid dogs, they don't drink. If they get rabid, they just bite, right? They don't have time to drink and eat, they just want to bite people, right? So they say rabid dogs don't drink. So why did the Prophet prohibit it? The response to that is that when a dog becomes visibly rabid, that's 15 days after he contracted rabies. Because in the beginning, you can't really tell he's sick. Right? Sometimes, don't you feel like you're going to get sick? You're not sick yet? That's the incubation period. You pray to Allah, oh Allah, heal me in time for a Fiqh class so I can go, right? Same way, there's a 15-day period before the dog, he starts showing signs of the rabies. So during that time, you might not even know he has rabies. Yes?
Is it like allowed to kill the dog if you don't have rabies?
Okay, this issue here about a dog that has rabies, obviously the rabies is going to kill the dog. So then you would have to say, what is most humane for the dog? The dog is definitely going to die, and it's a very terrible way of dying with rabies. There's no cure for it. Then, there would be some leeway for that, especially if it could spread and harm other people. Because in Islamic law, we have to be kind to animals, but if that animal is harmful to other people, like you have a cobra coming right down LC20 here, so be kind to the animals, you just let it go? No. You're allowed to kill it because he might kill you if you don't kill him before he kills you. We can kill mice. For example, the Prophet said the mouse will burn the house down upon its own. Yes, so the mouse, he might burn the house down upon the owner. So how is a mouse going to burn the house down upon the owner? In the old days, they used to have wax candles, or candles that had oil in them. And the mouse would come, and at night, when the people are sleeping, he'd climb up and he'd try to get the oil inside. But there's a flame, right? It's kind of hard to put your head in there and you get burned. So what does the mouse do? He has a tensile tail. He'll take the wick and throw it out so that he can jump in there and get the oil. But what happens to the wick? It's still burning. And what happens when it falls on the floor or the carpet? The whole house burns down on its own because of a little mouse. So the Prophet ﷺ, and even today, the mouse, they like to chew on the wires. So they might get a fire. So because of the harm of the animal, in Islamic law, what it says, let there be no harm or reciprocating harm. If the harm outweighs the benefit, if the harm of the mouse is going to harm people, then it's allowed to kill the mouse in that case, kill the snake. But here in the case of the dog, you might say, you look at the dog, if he's rabid, then you wash it 7 times, 1 time with dirt. But if he's not rabid, then you just wash it once. But you might not know that the dog is rabid. That's the thing. So the Prophet ﷺ is giving us this guidance. This is according again to who? That it's due to rabies and not due to physical impurity. Which Imam? Imam Malik. This is the view of Imam Malik. Jazakallah khairan. I love your word. No. And so the Sharia, in order to close the door to harm, it says for all dogs. Because we don't know which dog is rabid and which one isn't. But now we come to another question, which is, why the dirt? 7 times you can understand. Why dirt? I mean, what is the benefit of using dirt? First of all, again, let's go back and say, in everything in Sharia, we accept it and we know that Allah has a greater wisdom. We might not know today, we might discover 100 years from now, some of the things our ulama have discovered, but why dirt? And here, which is something very amazing, the scholars, they say that the bacteria, the rabies bacteria, is not cleansed through water. Water does not kill the bacteria. However, dirt has very strong properties that will kill the bacteria. And they've actually done studies and they found that the rabies, and I actually gave this, was talking about this hadith once in College Station, Texas, and a graduate student in veterinary medicine, he came to me and he said, that's an amazing hadith. Because we're just studying the bacterial, the rabies bacteria, and it's lipid in capsule. Anybody know what lipids are? Lipids are fats, they're oils. Is water mixed with oil? The water will not penetrate, will not harm the bacteria. You can wash it 7 times, but without dirt, the bacteria is still there. But you use dirt. Dirt has properties in it. Some of us said it's fluorine, kind of like chlorine, and it actually kills the bacteria in the dirt. Now, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, 14 centuries ago, did he have a microscope? But he had something better than a microscope. He had Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revelation. He had wahi coming down from the heavens, which told him this beautiful text, that if you get some dirt, you get a dog licking a container, make sure you wash it with dirt and 7 times. Yes, ma'am.
Can you use antibacterial soap?
That's actually the next paragraph. Jazakallah khairan. May Allah reward you. Can you use antibacterial soap? Okay, this is something, another amazing thing. The scholars that say that it's due to the filth, it's a physical impurity. It's a physical impurity. They say you should wash it the way the Prophet calls, using dirt, using water. The Hanbali school, they said you can use antibacterial soap. There's no harm in it, as a kind of analogy. They say that soap, antibacterial soap, is analogous to dirt. They made an analogy. But some of the scholars, they didn't agree with that. And this is the thing, I hope you understand this. Maybe it's a little bit more advanced for this class. But basically, one of the scholars, Ibn Daqiq al-Eid, he said that you have a general principle in Islam that the 2 things that purify are dirt and water. Dirt and water. Now, can you make an analogy when you say, oh, you know what, antibacterial soap is as good as dirt? And you know what, Pepsi cleans as well as water does. Can you make these kind of analogies with our text? That would be, basically the conclusion is that would be contradictory to a general principle, which is that we cannot make analogies when we have clear texts. We have clear evidence, There's no analogy in the presence of a text. We have a clear text that says wash with water, make wudu with water. Somebody says, no, I really like, I'm gonna stop talking about Pepsi. I really like Coca-Cola. Let me gargle with Coca-Cola. Cannot make an analogy. You have to go by the clear text. So the clear text is there. Can you start making, when you don't have any text, we do something called analogy, right? Have you heard of that? Analogy is like you try to make one thing similar to another. But when the text is there, there's no room to make an analogy. And they gave an example. Exciting. Somebody's getting excited about Fiqh knowledge. They give an example. When you have, say, have you ever gone apple picking? Anybody ever gone out to like Ghusl? Yeah. So do you see how many apples are on those trees sometimes? Sometimes the branches are literally breaking. So many fruits on it. So Ibn Taqi, he says that when you make analogies, these are like the fruits from the main laws. You have the main laws are there. And now you're trying to derive some branches, some like fruits from these. You know, these are like secondary laws. But he said when the secondary law contradicts the original law, then what do? Which one do you go with? You get rid of the secondary law and you stick with the original. And the same way when you have a tree that's giving you fruit, but the fruit is so heavy it's going to break the branch that gives it life, what does the farmer do? He might cut off those fruit just to save the life of the branch. And in the same way, Islamic law, in order to preserve the original rules, sometimes you give up some of the secondary rules to save the original. Another example to give is when you're in a masjid, for example. You ever go to a masjid where the imam says, "Wal-Dallin," and nobody says "Ameen"? You know a masjid like that? Now you walk into the masjid, mashallah, I just studied Fiqh. I got my degree in 10 classes of Fiqh. So you walk in, I'm going to teach these people a lesson. Go to Afghan masjid and Brandywine or something like that. And you say, "Ameen," and really loud in the whole masjid. All the brothers are looking at me. What is this guy doing? And then you try to, and then they don't want to listen and get in a big fist fight. You move your finger. I've heard some people that they're in some places. If you're in a masjid like that, now what do? Would you be so, because saying "Ameen," is any of the scholars say it's obligatory to say it out loud? They say it's sunnah, right? But is it obligatory? No. So now, in order to preserve unity, which is an obligation, it's a main foundation of brotherhood in Islam, would you create a fight over sunnah? Over like something like saying "Ameen" out loud or not? Especially if the people don't want to learn. If people want to learn, alhamdulillah, that's a blessing. But if people don't want to learn, would you give up the branch just for like this fruit, this thing that comes later on? Islamic law teaches us that you don't give up the roots or the tree trunk for these little fruits that come later on. We sacrifice them sometimes. But in any case here, what the scholars they say, that if you use antibacterial soap, you're doing a kind of analogy in the presence of texts that say water and dirt purify. And there's not really room for that because we should stick with the original text. Okay, also, we come to one last issue. Inshallah, I'm sorry to talk so long. I'll let you ask questions, inshallah. One last issue is the number 7. Now we understood the wisdom behind the dirt, perhaps. But why 7? And here in the ulama they say that 7, first of all, some ulama they allowed using a different number. Abu Hanifa, he says 3 is okay because Abu Hurairah himself, he gave a fatwa that you wash it 3 times and 1 time with it. But other ulama they said we should, Abu Hurairah's is an opinion, that's his fatwa. But we have a text from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Which one is higher? Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what he said, or Abu Hurairah? We love them both, but no one has the authority of Prophet Muhammad. He says something. The opinion of a Sahabi doesn't have the same weight. So the majority say we should stick with 7. Abu Hanifa, he says, using the dirt, you have to use dirt. Now Abu Hanifa, he says, you have different narrations of this hadith. Some say use dirt in the beginning. Some say use dirt all the way in the end, the 7th time. Some narrations they say use dirt the 8th time. So Abu Hanifa says, what is this, all these different narrations? Forget about the dirt. There's no clear text that says how to use the dirt. You see why his reasoning? What do the other scholars say? The other ulama say, that shows that you have to use dirt. Whether you use it in the beginning or in the end or in the middle or whatever, it doesn't matter, just use the dirt. So it just shows you more emphatically you have to use dirt, but it doesn't matter where along the line you're using the dirt. So that's another view. 7 times, they say that like when you have medicine, sometimes you have to repeat the medicine. It doesn't work the first time. Sometimes, right, you have a headache, too much chemistry homework. You take one Advil, it doesn't do the trick. Tylenol, you try different medicines. So at the same time, sometimes you have to repeat the same, your doctor says you have a backache, he says, do exercise. Sometimes you have to do it a few times. Same thing with washing, perhaps one time is not going to do the trick.
They say the same thing when you're taking a course of antibiotics or you're doing physical therapy.
Yes.
Even when you start to feel better, you're supposed to continue until you finish the course of medicine or prescribed therapy.
Yes, exactly. We don't know the hidden wisdoms in different things. We don't understand, perhaps we wouldn't know the wisdom behind the number 7. We just know that it's a repetition that brings a lot, that the Prophet taught us, and no doubt that there's a great wisdom in it. But now, I want to ask you, I'm going to put it to you now. Given the different evidences that we talked about, who do you think has a stronger position? The majority, Jumhur, who say that we have to wash 7 times, 1 time with dirt, because it's a spiritual or physical impurity, or Imam Malik, who says it's a health reason. Which side do you think is stronger and why? Give the evidence. Yes, brother.
I would go with Imam Malik.
You support Imam Malik, so the dog is pure.
Yes, so I get the reason.
Yes.
So my reason is that the same evidence from Quran, where Allah says about the dog, the same dog, the cat.
Yes.
Where you use the example of a bird. They have dogs that can trade to catch animals also. And in order to kill that animal, you have to bite.
Yes.
Bite. And that saliva can go inside
Yes.
the animal.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. If the dog, you say you set the dog on a duck, and he bites the duck and kills it, are you allowed to eat that duck? No. That's not what is meant actually in the verse. What is meant in the verse is that to make an animal halal, you have to slaughter it. Or you have to pierce it, the hunter has to pierce it so the blood comes out. If the dog killed the animal, then it's definitely not halal. Is the dog going to say Bismillah? It's not his love. If he did, so it's not the dog that actually kills the animal, but you're still right because the dog is putting it in his mouth and probably the saliva is going to touch the bird one way or another. So if it was something so filthy, so impure, then it would have expected that there would have been some text to mention that. So it is a very strong amount of time.
Two things. Imam Malik's view, just get it correct, he didn't say that we don't have to wash it with dirt or not have to wash it at all. He's just explaining, that was just his explanation that
it's not a spiritual impurity that will nullify your prayer. But there is a wisdom behind it. We still do it, but the dog doesn't nullify your prayer, at least according to Imam Malik. But if the dog licks from the container, you do have to wash it 7 times, 1 time with dirt. That's right.
And then the other thing is, I thought that the ayah was explaining that if whatever the dog gets is allowed for you to eat. I thought that was explaining that whether he kills it or not.
If the dog, if you hunt the dog, because there's other texts actually.
And I think that the other thing that I'm thinking about is if the dog eats from it, then it's but if he kills it, does his job, and brings it to you, then it's different.
What happens here when the dog, you set the dog, it's after the animal's already hunted. Because you're a hunter, right? You're shooting the animal with an arrow or with a slingshot or rock, not with a cinch, I'm sorry, with something sharp. But in all cases, Islamic law says that the animal has to be pierced. The animal has to be injured such that the blood gushes out. And that action of killing the animal, it cannot be done by a wild animal. So if the dog, say there was a bird that was slightly injured, and the dog goes and finishes him off, it wouldn't be halal. You have to be the one who killed the animal. You have to be the one that actually physically killed the animal. But the dog, the hunting dogs, they don't catch animals for you. They retrieve the animals. In the text it says that if you hunt the duck, anybody heard of duck hunt? Back in the day, they had a game in Nintendo. It was so addictive. So duck hunt, you would have the ducks fly out. The dog, actually what the dog would do, he would jump in the bush, and then the birds would fly out. And then you hunt the duck. I really enjoy it. The fifth duck hunt, okay? So the dog would jump in there, and the birds fly. Then you hunt them, and then the dog, he brings it back. That's basically how it works. So, but there is a text that says, if the dog ate from it, then you don't know if you were the one who killed it or the dog did. And also, if you found it that it's drowned, then you don't know if you killed it when you shot it, or if the drowning killed it. The Prophet says it's a So you have to be the one. You say the name of Allah and you shoot it, and then inshallah it will come.
You can shoot it with the gun?
Yes, the gun it has a bullet.
Yes.
It pierces the animal, and by the way, the blood coming out, there's a great wisdom in that too. When the blood comes out of an animal, they found that all of the illnesses and diseases they run in the blood. The blood is very harmful. And so a land animal, if you were to consume that blood, you could eat, you would harm yourself. But as for a fish, for example, you have to slaughter the fish. Some people, they mark the fish and they write slaughtered according to Sharia, Zabiha fish. Obviously, who are these people? They must have never studied Islamic law. They're just trying to use the name to get money. Actually, fish, you don't need to slaughter. The fish is already halal. And one of the wisdoms behind that is the blood of the fish, it is actually white when it dries up and it's filled with oxygen. And so if you consume that blood, it's not harmful. But the blood of animals, when it dries, it turns black. And that shows that it has a lot of carbon dioxide and other things in it that's very harmful when you consume it. So subhanAllah, the Sharia already taught us that the things in the ocean are halal automatically. Things on the land, you have to let the blood come out, inshallah. Sister had her hand up first and then come to you. Yes.
What I was going to say is, dogs are usually trained just to, like you said, retrieve it and not to put their mouth heavy on it. So they shouldn't have any kind of like this to pick it up and bring it lightly to their masters.
Yes. And in fact, the trained animals, the dog that's trained, even some ulama, they said that you can, the hadith applies to a dog that's not trained. In the Maliki school, they say if the dog is not trained, an untrained dog, he licks from a container, then you have to wash it 7 times, 1 time a day. If it's a trained dog, surprisingly, Imam Malik says you don't have to wash it 7 times, 1 time a day. If it's a trained dog, that's one of the ways that it is. Yes, any other? Yes, brother.
Wait, so we can shoot animals say you went to a deer, right? You go there, you shoot the deer, and after you shoot the deer drops on the liquor, right? It doesn't matter the spot.
Yes.
So is there, after it dies, is there a certain wait time to go for it, or you have to go for it and kill it before you?
Oh, okay, good question. The question here is about when you hunt an animal, do you have to slaughter it also? I guess it's kind of the question. No, you don't have to. Because there are some texts that say that if you hunt an animal and your arrow hits it with a sharp edge and it pierces it, then it's halal. But if it hits it with a blunt edge, like somehow the arrow were to hit it and not pierce it, and it kills it anyway, then the animal's halal. So if you hunt it with an arrow or with a spear or anything that pierces the animal, you say the name of Allah, even if the animal were to die afterwards somewhere else, as long as it penetrated in the blood. that's a great question. Good question. About dogs in general. What is the ruling on dogs? Okay, first of all, we shouldn't act like dogs. We should be, you know. Actually, dogs are. Some people have the impression that Islam is against dogs, or considers all dogs evil creatures. And one of the great scholars in Yemen, his name is Abu Majid Zindani. He wrote a book called Fadl al-Kilab ala kathir man yalbis al-thiyab, the virtue of dogs over many who wear clothes. And he says that the dogs are loyal to their masters, and that they, human beings are not loyal. It might be one day they're your friend, the next day they're against you. But he said dogs will never do that. So he actually says dogs are more virtuous than many people. And subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that whoever keeps a dog for other than 3 purposes, which is the hunting dog, the guard dog, or the shepherd dog, then he will lose 2 qirats, 2 mountains of reward each day. So here the scholars analyzing this hadith, they said that the dog, when it's a hunting dog or a shepherd dog, they said these dogs are very useful to their owners. And the shepherd dog will actually run out into the pasture and bring the sheep back. If it runs away, it has a rope. They're very intelligent and very useful to the owner. Same thing with a hunting dog, same thing with a guard dog. So in these cases, they bring a great benefit to the owner. However, keeping a dog just as a normal pet, without any of these benefits, then the dog also has some negative things associated with it. For example, the dog is not always clean. The dog might urinate in the house, or he eats filthy things. Dogs, they eat dirty things. So if that dog, he brings some of that dirty things into the house, it has a lot of negative things associated with it too. So what the scholars they say is that for those 3 cases, and some ulama, they add like a seeing eye dog, they have a great benefit, and the benefit outweighs the harm. But in the case when you don't have a dog for these reasons, just as a pet, then the harm outweighs the benefit, and so the Sharia prohibits those cases. So having a dog just as a poodle to sit with you and lick your lunch with you and stuff like that, it's not allowed. But if you have a dog you need the dog for some extra purpose, then inshallah this is permissible in the Sharia.
When you
Yes.
say for a guard dog,
Yes.
is for protection?
Yes. If you have a person to keep a dog, the dogs are very beneficial for them. If you're a farmer, if you have a farm or you have a large place, and you don't, how are you going to sleep at night? You don't know if some animals are going to come, some stranger intruder might come. The dogs will watch the whole night. They'll start barking and scare away the thieves.
So in other words, apartment doesn't count.
An apartment, I don't know if that would be, if that would really come under the heading, because, the confined space, you have to ask, is that the only way? I mean, is it really for a guard dog, or is that just like a secondary reason? Like some people, they keep a dog as a pet, and you explain to them, the Sharia says that we shouldn't really have dogs in the house and so on. They say, oh, okay. They think about it. Oh, okay, it's a guard dog. Or they say, they try to think of some reason for it. But it shouldn't really be that way. Allah knows best our intentions. If we really need a dog to guard, it's allowed. And if it's for a pet, then it's not allowed. Yes?
Does this include therapy dogs?
Therapy, what do you mean by?
Like if they're blind?
Oh yeah. A lot of ulama, they say that by analogy, the people that they use dogs for, like a hound dog, to find a lost child. One of my friends, he a very funny story. He had his grandson at the house, and he was going to the masjid. So he took his grandson, and he kind of maybe forgot to tell his wife. So his wife, she panicked. She said, "What happened to my grandson?" She called the police, and his house is like almost a mile away from the masjid. So they brought a hound dog, and they just let him smell one of the articles of clothes. And the hound dog brought him right to the masjid, and they said, "We need to come in the masjid." Why? He said, oh, I took my son, I didn't tell my wife, my grandson. So the dogs, they can really benefit in law enforcement, and they can benefit for blind people. They're very loyal and they won't run away. They'll help the person. So actually, these are cases that, by analogy, the ulama said they are also permissible.
Okay, so if you keep a dog as a pet, but you don't keep it in the house, is that okay? Like outside of the house?
The text is kind of, we can only go by what the text says. And this is what the scholars, they say that having a dog for other than these reasons, it takes away the reward. Now the scholars, they said, what does it mean that you lose 2 mountains of reward? Some ulama, they said that due to the impurities associated with the dog, the hair, the dog, maybe the brings impurities in the house, the urine, that the angels will stay away from the house, and it might invalidate prayer, for example, for those who say the saliva is an impurity. And all of these things, they take away from the acts of worship, so you end up losing so much reward. So even if you have a pet dog outside, he might run to you and lick you or lick the kids. And there's still other ways that it could be harmful. So due to that, the emphasis is on cleanliness. It's not that the dog itself is bad. This is something that we have my friend Dennis here. I want to welcome you to the class. You know, a lot of Americans, this is one of the misconceptions they have that Muslim, because you know, if you go to a non-Muslim's house and he has a dog and he sees you running the other way, he thinks that you hate dogs. But if you explain to them, it's not the dog. What is it? Dennis? The saliva.
So what?
The saliva of the dog.
Saliva.
The saliva, yes. That's what the Islamic law, it has a problem with the saliva. And then they always tell you, no, he doesn't bite. It's not the bite, it's the licking. They think they like, you know, a lot of Americans, they might not know that. We don't like the licking because it's a ritual purity. It's a matter of ritual purity. It's not a matter of not liking dogs. Actually, we have to be kind to all animals. And you all know the story. It's a beautiful story. We'll close with this, and if you want to stay after for more questions, you're welcome. The story of a woman, she was actually a prostitute in the time of the Bani Israel, the children of Israel. Prophet Muhammad told us the story. So she was walking, she was so thirsty, she saw a well. In those days they had wells that you kind of walk down in, and she went down and took her shoe. I'm jumping the story here. She went down and drank some water, and then she came up, and she fulfilled her thirst. And then she saw a dog who was licking the ground, licking the mud. He was so thirsty, he had no way of getting in the well. So she said to herself, this poor dog, I was thirsty, and I went and drank the water, I feel relieved, but he's just like I was before. So she goes down, puts her shoe in the water and brings it up, and gives the water to that poor dog. So then, Prophet Muhammad he said, Allah thanked her and forgave her and entered her into paradise because of it. And another version of the hadith, the dog was grateful to her, and because of that, Allah showed mercy to her and forgave all of her sins. So kindness for animals is definitely part of Islam, but there's a bigger picture that the Sharia teaches us about, which is health. You know, the Sharia came, what did we say in the beginning? To ward off all. Jalb al-Masala, bring all the benefits and ward off all the harms. So kindness is there, but also cleanliness, healthiness. All of these things are part of our Sharia, alhamdulillah. And maybe next time I can mention a few points about the higher aims and objectives of Sharia. There's 5, inshallah. Okay, maybe last question? Yes.
Let's say if you have like cattle, something that's eating, you're allowed to kill that.
What do you mean something eating?
Like, let's say you go around the place that's like wolves.
Oh, okay. The animal has been attacked by a wolf or another animal, like a cow, and you slaughter it, you are allowed to eat. But if the animal is attacked by a wolf and the wolf killed it, then we're not allowed. Are you allowed to kill a wolf? If it's not harming your crop, then you can protect your animals. So that would come under the heading of protecting your property and avoiding all harm to your property.
So when it comes to the piercing, is it for example, sheep versus deer.
Yes.
You pierce a sheep.
Oh, the piercing of the animal. Okay, the way that you slaughter an animal, normally speaking, you wouldn't pierce an animal unless you're hunting an animal. If you have a sheep, you would slaughter it. That was the sunnah. That was the way Prophet Muhammad said something. He didn't pierce it with a spear. He slaughtered it because it's more merciful to the animal. And there's a hadith, a famous hadith. The Prophet says, he said, when you slaughter an animal, sharpen the knife and put it out of it's more relaxing for the animal because you kill it quickly. If you use some slow method of killing it, like a dull knife or even spear, it will take longer and it will be more painful for the animal. So normally the sunnah is, we're not talking about halal and haram here, we're talking about sunnah. Use a sharp knife for the sheep, and for the camel they allow piercing the artery because that's called nahar. Because when you do the nahar of the camel, it's just like slaughtering. And the camel has a long neck. If you slaughter him way up here, the heart would have to pump the blood a long distance. So actually piercing it at the bottom, the blood comes out quickly. He dies right away because there's no blood going to his brain. He doesn't feel any pain. The same way, for a cow now, do you slaughter it or you pierce it? They say both are allowed for the cow because he has a somewhat longer neck. But if you slaughter it, it's okay also. Jazakallah khair. Thank you for, may Allah bless all of you and accept all of you. I hope you enjoyed and benefited from the class. And if you have any questions, or next time I'm going to bring cookies, inshallah. I'm sorry we only had 6 muffins. The brothers grabbed them all in the beginning. We'll bring some cookies for sisters next time. Jazakallah khair.